Okay. All right, let's see. Just see if this works. All right, let's see. Oh, cool. All right, let's just go for it. Cool. All right, I'm just testing out a live stream thing. I actually, this is my first time actually doing a live stream on my own. So just wanted to get some cool ideas out. So I guess the workflow for this video, or what we're going to be talking about, or what I'm going to be talking about, is how to use a live sound console to do real-time processing. And by that I mean, you know, when you're tracking a band. Lots of times I will use consoles to track a band over an interface because I have 48 channels on this console. I have 32 channels on my other console. If I use like an Allen and Heath, there's another 48 channels. Anything that has Dante gives me 64 channels. And it's really cool. And I just wanted to go over the workflow on how this works. So if we open up my Nuendo session, right, just to show you the workflow. Let's also make it so I'm not in the way by going boom. See if that worked. Yeah, cool. All right, so basically the workflow for this would be, hey, let's say I'm recording a band. Let's pretend this is a guitar or a drum kit or whatever. Well, we're going to go into our DAW. We're going to select our interface that we have. In this case, I'm using my Behringer Wing. So we see my 48 channels of inputs and my 48 channels of outputs. You can do whatever, your control room, whatever, but you're going to make a track, right? And you're going to decide, let's pretend this is drums, guitar, whatever. You're going to select the input that you're going to use, and you're going to select the output that's going to go out back into the console. That way, you can track with real-time processing and listen back with the same effects on. Because most of the time when you're tracking something, you want it to be clean unless you want those effects baked in. Normally what I do, I track everything clean and then I do the processing after, because after the fact, when I have time listening through speakers over headphones, I can correct issues, right? So our workflow. In this case, we're going to do input 3, and that's going to be the guitar input. So we're going to go over to my console, and we're going to create a workflow. So the first thing I'm going to do is choose channel 1, and I'm going to make sure that you're going to be able to hear it right here. I'll be able to hear it, and that the speakers will hear it. I'm going to go to my input source, and this is going to be really important. You want to choose an input that is going to have your source. So I have my local inputs. I have my 32 inputs for my stage box. I have my USB audio and my Dante inputs. You can see my voiceovers coming in right there. We're going to select input 2. I'm going to grab my guitar, and we're just going to see if we get signal. There we go. So we're seeing signal, and now we want to do is set up my loop back essentially. So if you have a Behringer Wing or a console that has an A and a B input, it's actually going to be really cool. You're going to go to the B or the alternative, and you're going to select the return. So I'm going to go via USB, and we're going to do USB 9, because in my case, my computer, my PC, can actually see 8 stereo or 4 stereo inputs and outputs. There's a bunch of traffic going on right now, so if you hear cars, my bad. So what that means is DAW is 1, 2, my PC or laptop is 3, 4. I have my headphones and for Spotify playlists and stuff like that on 7, 8. So with this setup, we basically now have an A and B section where we can play in real time, and we can listen back from our DAW. So let's set up our DAW's loopback. We're going to arm this and hit listen, and we should be able to see it on input 3. We don't. Well, for the wing, you have to basically do all the routing ahead of time. So USB output and input. So in this case, we're going to have input 9 is going to be the USB audio. What are we going to feed the card? Well, for 3, we want input 2. So we're going to go into 3, and we should see it. I'm wondering why we're not seeing it. That's weird. Let me double check to make sure that my routing is correct. Yeah, I should be seeing it. Let me double check. So that's correct for my outputs into my DAW. And that's going to be my return from my DAW. So we're going to go here. I think someone just texted me. Cool. And it could be the gain. Oh, it's because I'm on alternative, right? So we have our gain. Let's set this up so we're getting a decent level. Now we're going to bring this up so you guys can hear it. I'm going to mute myself. And the only thing that I'm not really seeing, because I just tested this, is we should be getting our inputs. So it could be Nuendo's being a weirdo. Let's check our inputs on Nuendo. Okay, I see myself. Oh, wait, hold on. I think I'm wrong. Give me 1 second. Okay, so you should be able to hear that. And let's just go over the routing. See, this is the only real problem when it comes to this stuff. So I see myself in my local inputs. My USB audio inputs are going to go into 9, and my outputs here, I said it's a Dante. So that's my bad. That's kind of the only problem with having so many connections, is you have to make sure you're going to the right ones. So USB on the wing is 1 through 48. Dante is 1 through 64. Bloop. And I was on Dante. So we're going to do 3, 2. Now we can see it going into Nuendo. So that was my bad. I went in the wrong menu. Now, what we want to do is show you the return function. So I'm going to mute myself, and we're going to see how we're going to hear signal, and then it's going to return back in from the DAW. Here we go. Now there's going to be a pretty big latency because my Nuendo session is at 12 or 1024 samples. Let's actually double check that. It's not a low latency setting because I have this just set up to do mixing. We've got my wing control. I am at a buffer of, 1024, right? So whatever. But the whole point is with this, I can actually go ahead and track stuff in. So if we're on the main inputs, let's say we want to insert an effect. I have the angle right here. I keep forgetting to unmute myself, right? We gotta track that now, right? Let's make sure that we're able to record this and get it into our DAW. So we're going to hit record. And here we go. Cool. So that's done. That didn't sound great. It wasn't to performance, whatever, right? The point is now we are going to listen back. If we go back into our console, we're going to go into our inputs and go to alternative and check this out. So what I did is I recorded clean, right? And you can hear that if I bypass the effect. But I can then play it back through the same channel so I can have all the same processing. So let's say, hey, I really wanted a Moog EQ, right? I can modify this and just get that sound out of it. We'll make like a really, really amazing loop from this amazing performance that I did. You know, it's just absolutely amazing. Okay, so I will admit the Angle amp sucks. Honestly, any distorted amp sounds kind of bad on the Behringer Wing. It doesn't sound great. It doesn't really do much for you, but there are other options. You could do like the clean amps. They actually sound very good, but this is just like, hey, it's an example. If you're tracking live and you need something to give you a sound, this is how you'll get it. So if we go for like the deluxe, and that one doesn't sound as bad. It's not so bad. Honestly, the Fender is okay, and the Jazz Clean is actually really, really good. Man, I don't know what is going on outside, but there's like people racing cars right now in the middle of the day. But yeah, so let's say I'm tracking drums, right? Well, I can now go ahead and say, you know, I don't need any of this. I don't want any of this, but I can do some EQ, some compression, get it to sound really good, like really, really good in the ears or in the monitors. And it's all real time with zero latency. And then I just say, hey, it's time to play back. Well, you go to your DAW after you've recorded it, you make sure it's coming back into the same channel, and you hit play. You change the input, and you will be able to essentially have a essentially mixed or the exact same mix that you had in the live recording in real time, right? So you're able to have your real-time processing to EQ everything, make it sound good, have your delays, reverbs, play it back, and still have that tone. And then you still have the option to mix live or the live recording in your little studio environment. And because the Behringer Wing has very, very good preamps in it, you can see that it's very clean. There's no real noise. It's good. It's really good. But this workflow actually works like that in other consoles as well. A console that's very, very popular for people is Studio Live consoles, right? Lots of churches, lots of like studio people really like Studio Live consoles. Personally, I think they're pretty okay. I don't think they're great for live sound, but they're actually really good. So if we go for Universal Control, and let's just grab a offline editor. this is the UI for Universal Control, right? So if you have a Studio Live console, the way that this would work would be essentially, hey, have my gating, my EQ, my compression, and I would go ahead and say, you know what, I really like the sound of the RC500 comp, and I really want to have a Neve EQ, right? We can do a little bit of like a EQ curve. We get rid of a little bit of mud. We boost a little bit of lows to make it thick, and then we roll off, right? You don't have to record this down, even though you do have that option. But in Studio One, it's really cool because you're able to control the console from Studio One. But if you're not using Studio One, it will be a very simple layout where, let's say you go into your routing tab, which I believe is here, and you select your input sources. So channel 1 is going to be your USB. So awesome. But USB here would be here. So what you do is you basically have this record down with the processing, right? It's going to go into your DAW, and you have your DAW return on, let's say, channel 1. So then in this case, for the channel, you would actually go input USB. Now the playback is going to be going through the same processing, even though it was recorded cleanly with no effects. It's really cool because you can do it like this. So you have your analog, you have your AVB, you have your digital, and your SD card, right? So USB and SD card. So all you would do is switch between analog to record. Da-da-da-da-da-da, play, 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 play. It sounds cool. Cool, I want to listen back to my mix. You switch it over to the USB, and now you can play back through the same thing, and you can have your same fader mix, your same everything. It's really, really good. It's very, very, very good for the type of workflow where, hey, I want to make sure that I get the same sound in my ears when I tracked back. Because one thing that will kind of throw you off, like let's say you're using an Apollo and you're not tracking with the effects, you can listen to it, you can get this great sound, but then after it's been recorded, hey, none of that was printed. So you're gonna have to recreate that in your DAW. And it can kind of use excess resources, in my opinion, because then you'll have to do all this processing to get the similar sound, and you would essentially have to erase your buffer. You wouldn't be able to do as much real-time processing or tracking. Like let's say you're using instruments, suddenly you have a bigger buffer, although your live recording might be good because you're using an Apollo. Playing with MIDI instruments with a high buffer can give you some issues. So this is a great way of mediating, or this is a great way of bypassing that whole thing. So like I said, if you're using a Studio One console or Studio Live console, you go analog in, and then when you're playing back, you go USB playback. And the way you do that in your DAW is you would go, hey, this is going to go in to, let's say, channel 1, and then out channel 1. And that would allow me to have the full functionality of tracking with effects, recording clean, playing back with those same effects. And if I want to do something special, or I have like a really good emulation of something or better amp sims, then I can throw them in now. In my case for here, it would be very easy to do. I could slap in like an Nbrini audio plugin, or what is it, the HK. I could do the pure tone right here, and I can get a really, really great tone out of it, and just play it back. In my case, I could very simply just have this coming out of my main left right now. And now I can just mix it, right? Now I can just mix down, but this would also start eating up CPU cycles. And if you have stuff that has latency, this will start introducing latency so that your playback and recording might start to suffer a little bit. It's just like a workflow thing. Now, the next thing would be, we have an Allen and Heath console, right? Allen and Heath consoles have a kind of similar workflow. So we'll go for the SQ. It's the one that I use. We'll go for an offline. We'll do connecting. This is a little bit more complex, to be completely honest. The SQ consoles, I don't really like the way that Allen and Heath does their SQ and under. If it's like an Advantis or if it's like a D-Live, they're very good, but they also kind of like start losing that multi-track capability. It becomes a Dante-based device. So in this case, what you would do for your local inputs is you'd go into your input section and you have your inputs 1 through, I believe, 32, right? Boom, 1 through 32. And then you would go ahead and also have your USB inputs. So what you do is, let's say you have input 1. This is where you set your gain, your phantom power for your condenser microphone. And this is where you could load up the library of no model or the tube stage, which is going to give you some type of distortion, right? And then you could do your high pass filtering, your gating, your EQing, and everything like that. You can make it sound really nice and lovely in your headphones. You can record down, and then when you want to play back, this is where it would be annoying, is you have to go to your patching and go to USB. Now when you hit play in your DAW, this is going to play back that exact same way. So you can say, hey, my groovy mix is really chill. I really like it right here. And then I want to hear it back. Boom. Same thing. It's a slower workflow. It is a lot slower of a workflow. Honestly, Studio One, or I keep saying Studio One, the Studio Live consoles have probably the fastest workflow for this out of all of the consoles, because there's a button on them. But if you have the rack one, it's really easy to just be like, okay, switch, 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 switch. And the reason why it's so fast is because you have the I/O section where you can actually tell each individual channel what it is, what each input, right? So input 1, USB or analog would be 1, it would be my AVB 40, and it would be my USB 33. It's really fast and easy, or SD card 34, right? And now I just switch between them. Boom, boom, boom. Really fast. And I like that you have all of them just laid out. It's a very good studio workflow layout. The Behringer Wing has a equally fast workflow. I just click Alt or Main. But the way that I have to go through my menus is kind of confusing, because look at all this, right? I have my local inputs. I have aux-ins, which my rack does not have, AES50, I have oscillators, I have all these inputs, right? USB player, user signals, matrices, mains. And it just becomes a thing where, hey, it's a little bit complicated to get signal back and forth at times. So that is the only downside of a Behringer Wing, is that it's so powerful that it can become a little bit jarring and a little bit complicated for those of you who don't know how to build a show. Anyone who uses Allen and Heath probably would love the workflow if they could get over the fact that, you know, there's not a really annoying Dante style patch area. I really hate the Allen and Heath way, because what they do is when you're going into the I/O patch, you'd actually just touch it with your finger and you drag down, and it would basically like let you select them. But the screen is like this big and the Behringer screen is like this big, right? So you have this tiny little dots, and the touch sensitivity is not that great on the Allen Heath consoles. So when you're doing this, you're often like mispatching and it's doing like a zigzag. So it's annoying, or you have to do the individual touches. But I will give it to them. Them being able to just drag and patch is very, very good. The Behringer Wing, the fastest way of doing it would be going into your routing page, and then you go to your channel inputs, and that's where you would just be like, hey, you know what? I want to have this, right? And then you have to make sure you have the auto 1 on, and then it will let you do this. But you can't drag, and that's kind of whack, to be honest. I think they should really create a option to do that, especially because there are options in the routing menus where you can say, hey, let's go to this matrix. I want all these channels on. So that is a thing. Now, the next one is going to be the X32 or the M32. This is a console I own. I have one right here. We're going to connect it to my computer right now. Just transferring its parameters. And this is kind of the ugliest and worst workflow. I'm going to be honest with you. So for the X32 and M32, you have banks of 8, right? You have these little user banks that you can create, but they're kind of a hassle to work with. So for this case, what you would do in your workflow is, let's say you have a microphone here. You send up the gain, you set up the level, and you go ahead and set up your dynamics. Now, this doesn't have any type of analog emulation whatsoever. That's an insert point. So for that, you'd go to your effects section. You have 8 effects. You can go here and be like, hey, I really want a tube stage emulation. You put it on channel 1 and you insert it. Now you go ahead and do your editing, whatever, add some drive, whatever, and you're good. But you have only 8 slots total, and they're dual mono or stereo. So you can either have 2 on 1, and it would be an A and a B section. Or like, let's say it's a stereo effect, you would have to dedicate 1 whole slot for a stereo effect. So let's say like a stereo exciter or a Pultec. This would now be dedicated on a stereo channel. Now, the reason why this is kind of a little bit of a slower workflow is because, like the Allen and Heath, you don't actually have the ability to switch between patches. You don't have anything like that. You have to go to the configuration and change it manually, right? So in this case, you would record, da-da-da-da-da, look at my amazing mix. This is fantastic. And then you record it into your DAW the exact same way. You select input 1, playback on output 1, and then you record it. It's a clean, beautiful recording, a little bit noisier because it's going to be an X32. And then what you're going to do is want to do a new patch. So you can go to your routing panel, and you're going to be like, hey, instead of inputs 1 through 8 coming in from XLR, or my A is 50, we're going to come in from the card. You're going to select that, and now you'll see on the channel, the config, it's C1, card 1. Now, my option card is a Dante card, so I have 32 in, 32 out on Dante. So you do lose USB if you get any expansion card that isn't the SD card or the USB card. Dante or Wave SoundGrid, you get only Dante, only Wave SoundGrid. But that's also where it's a benefit because in my case, I have both my consoles on the Dante network. So I could easily just add this as extra inputs, right? I could be like, hey, you know what? I want you to come in on Dante 64 on this channel. I would just open up a Dante controller. And I don't know why I didn't have that open. We're going to open this up real quick. It takes like a couple seconds to boot. Dante controller is very slow. Boom, there we go. And in this case, we could be like, okay, so I want my X32 to feed channel 1 into channel 64. Okay, cool. So let's go Wing Dante, channel 64. We'll get its input from output Dante 1 of the X32. Now that it's green, you now have 2 consoles talking to each other. The latency is 1 millisecond between them. I think 2 milliseconds at most. And you're good to go. You have a cool workflow that lets you combine consoles. This also works if you have, let's say, a Yamaha console, or if you have an Allen and Heath with a Yamaha expansion card slot. You're going to be able to basically have everything connect. And if you have Dante Virtual Sound Card like I do, you can record up to 64 channels. If you get the Pro subscription, I believe it goes up to 128 channels. But they haven't optimized it better for like lower latency or lower buffering. So it is a little bit iffy. I would say you have to have at least like a 2.5 gig network switch with a 2.5 gig RJ45 on your computer minimum. So I wouldn't really rely on that. But it is a cool workflow, right? You're ending up getting a cross-platform, cross-console compatibility, where let's say, hey, I really like the sound of the Allen and Heath preamps, but I like the sound of the Wings effects better, or I, for some reason, really like the sound of the X32's effects. You can have them all cross-pollinate, essentially, and then record it down, in this case, on Nuendo, Studio One, Pro Tools, whatever. In this case, you would basically have to select your Dante virtual sound card as your audio device. So instead of it being my Wing USB, I would have to swap it over to be, let's see, the Dante, where is it? It's Dante virtual sound card. And that would allow me to have the 64 in, 64 out. I will say this, on most PCs and Macs, unless you have a dedicated Dante machine, your buffer is going to be higher on Dante because Dante has a set amount of latency that it has to have as a minimum. And I can show you that right now. If we go to the options, we have our buffer size, we have our encoding for the bitrate, and we also have an Audio latency. Now on my Nook that I use to do all my vocal processing, it's not a big deal because I have that set to 1. And then I also have my Dante latency set to 4. And it works fine. It works completely fine. And I'm able to get 5 milliseconds of latency. And it works perfectly. It works really, really well. But if you have a computer like this is a Intel i9 14th gen laptop that I'm using. Those laptop Intels are complete garbage. The real-time processing on this thing is so bad that if you are going to use Dante, you need to have it set to 10 millisecond Dante latency, 10 millisecond Audio latency, and that's 20 milliseconds of lag that you're getting. But if you do that, you get a very stable workflow. In my case, I set it to 6, and I just live with it. It gives me 16 milliseconds back and forth versus the 20 back and forth, which is pretty crazy. If you have something like a dedicated computer, you're getting the ability of having everything at like 1, you have it at 4, you're able to have like this super low latency machine, and that's exactly what I do on my Nook. Let me see if I can actually bring up my Nook right now on my video switcher. Video switcher's all the way over there. So I'm just going to go like this. I believe it should be camera 4. Boom. Okay. So then you can see this is me coming into Super Rec Performer. I have a denoiser and then another denoiser, and that's how I'm getting rid of all the noise from the air conditioning being full blast and from my having windows open and a bunch of cars are zooming on by. All the other processing on my voiceover, like at all times, is just going through the Behringer Wing, and I can show you that right now. We'll go into my band where I made a custom layout, and I have the external input, which is this. Watch if I turn this off. It sounds completely different. You get a lot of noise. It's because I'm also like 2 feet away from my laptop. And then I have my distressor. I have some crazy EQ because I have a very nasally voice and very resonant and has a lot of sibilance. I have a de-esser that I'm using a dynamic EQ for, and that's my whole signal processing. I'm also using the tilt EQ and the low cut just to kind of brighten it up. So it basically has a low cut, a shelf tilt EQ kind of thing, the denoising, a compressor, an EQ, and then a dynamic EQ to get rid of more sibilance, and that's my entire signal flow, signal flow. And then this is going into the headphone recorder, and then I'm just basically routing it all out to right here, where it says mix to PC, ATEM recorder, VO recorder. So that's all done in almost completely real time. I get a very, very, very small latency. It's minuscule. I can't even really detect it. If I bring myself up, yeah, it's so small. I literally do not hear any delay. It's probably 5 milliseconds total because it's going through Dante. But the Wing has under 1 millisecond of latency. I think it's like 0.9 milliseconds, 0.9 milliseconds, sorry. And no, 0.9 milliseconds of latency. Whereas an Allen & Heath SQ would be 0.7 milliseconds, which is not that much less. It's still under 1 millisecond. And then the Studio Live would be 1.2 milliseconds of latency, which is actually a lot of latency for a live sound console. That's kind of why I do not think the Studio Live is the best console for live sound. The fact that it has a high latency count and that its effects, their delays, reverbs, choruses, don't sound very good at all, makes it not the best for live sound. But it's a very powerful console for studio recordings. And then if you're using an X32, your latency in and out of its console and mixer interface is under 0.7 milliseconds, I think. It's like 0.6. It's ridiculously low. But it's because it's a very basic setup and a very basic console. Yeah, that's going to be it for this stream. I am just kind of bored and the kids are not home. And I just wanted to test out to see how it sounds. I haven't been monitoring the stream. I hope that nobody's watching the stream, to be honest, because I am just going to do this to look back and see how did it look? How does it sound? Is it okay that I left all my windows open because there are people like racing outside for some reason? I do live in LA and we do have like a bunch of like crazy immigration stuff going on here right now. So sometimes there's like just random police just driving by to go to the areas where they're going to go like detain people. It's pretty crazy, but good thing I do sound, huh? I don't like going outside. Anyway, that's it. Thank you guys for hopefully not watching. I need to go find my YouTube